Tonight, payday. Trump hauls in $50 million in one night, but then begins the week with an abortion statement nobody liked.
All legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade.
Death to America.
Pour all of your chants and all of your shouts upon the head of America.
Muslim protesters rage against the U.S. and its closest ally. Why Democrats in the Senate carry their water. Gone in rural America. Why a week later, police can't find two missing moms or the suspects. Is there any hope in the barren Oklahoma panhandle? And fire in the sky. No, not the eclipse.
Let's go ahead and declare an emergency for Southwest.
Another packed Boeing 737 narrowly averts disaster.
We got a piece of the engine cowling hanging off, apparently.
How having safe planes and competent pilots became political. Welcome to the fairest show on television. First tonight, deja vu all over again. Donald Trump keeps giving Democrats what they want. It's confusing, really. If that sounds familiar, it's because we opened last Monday's show with exactly the same three sentences. And it happened again this weekend. Trump nearly doubled Biden's record-breaking, incredible $25 million fundraising haul and brought in $50 million in Palm Beach. As we predicted, the media didn't cover it. But still, Trump could have basked in the glory of the win, and it is a big win. He could have also called up Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and talked about endorsement possibilities after The Rock said he wouldn't endorse Mr. Biden this time around.
I thought back then, when we talk about, hey, I'm in this position where I have some influence, and it's my job then. I felt like that then. It's my job now to exercise my influence and share with this is who I'm going to endorse. Am I going to do that again this year? That answer is no.
Trump could have focused all day on Mr. Biden's attempt to circumvent the rule of law, go around the Supreme Court, and then forgive tens of billions of dollars of student loans. This is his latest blatant attempt to buy off college-educated progressives on the backs of working-class Americans in a swing state no less like Madison, Wisconsin. But no. Beginning Sunday night, Trump started talking about abortion.
My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state.
No matter where you stand on the abortion issue, this segment is not about abortion. It's about the politics of it. Abortion is Republicans' political equivalent of immigration. When Republicans are talking about abortion, they are losing. When Democrats are talking about immigration, they are losing. Republicans fight about it amongst themselves. Namely, Trump's former vice president, Mike Pence, tweeted, quote, "President Trump's retreat on the right to life is a slap in the face to the millions of pro-life Americans who voted for him in 2016 and 2020. Pro-life Americans will never relent until we see the sanctity of life restored to the center of American law in every state in this country." That may be true in Pence's mind. It did not work in the primary for him, obviously. It doesn't work in statewide referendums time and time and time again. Kentucky, Ohio, Kansas, the list goes on. Politically, it's a killer for Republicans. Again, 1 week, deja vu all over again. Here's Bill O'Reilly last week. Donald Trump at this point is almost reminding me of that old Israeli saying about the Palestinians that he never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
He doesn't seem to be able to ignore things that he should ignore. And he's hurting himself. There's no question he is. The ultimate revenge for Donald Trump is winning the election in November.
Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas, is with us. Governor, it is always good to see you. Thank you. It looks like you survived the eclipse in Arkansas where it headed over. Thank you. Good to see you. Trump is getting filleted right now on television over the abortion issue and the stance that he just took. It'll happen all night. It'll happen tomorrow morning. Is that his fault or theirs?
Donald Trump is going to get filleted no matter what he says about whatever issue. He could say that the eclipse was an amazing experience. And by the way, it was. Oh. But he could say that and somebody would say, yeah, it was Donald Trump's fault that the sun got blurted out for a while and he should turn it back on. So this is nothing new. But here's a reality. There's going to be a choice in November between one person who believes that life does matter. Donald Trump, may not be as strong on the abortion issue as I am. I think life begins at conception. I don't think there's such a thing as a human being that is disposable or expendable, that doesn't have intrinsic worth and value. So for some of us, this isn't a political issue. It's not a legal issue. It's a moral issue. It's the equivalent of slavery, where you have people who think they can own another person and take their life if that person is in their way. And then there's the Democrat side, which believes essentially abortion is just simply a matter of choice, and you can have an abortion right up until the moment of birth. I'll take our position. I'll take Donald Trump's position over that one any day of the week, because that is the extreme one, Leland. So, yeah, the thing is set. I don't understand where Mike Pence is coming from today. This makes no sense. Him talking about retreating from his position. It was Trump that gave us 3 Supreme Court justices who led to the repeal of Roe Wade, which, by the way, I never thought was the big deal anyway. Roe Wade only sent it back to the states. It doesn't really encapsulate what ought to be a moral and spiritual decision. But, we can only go as far as the public is willing for us to go. And right now, quite frankly, I hate to admit it, but the public isn't with me in my position as much as I wish they were.
Fair enough. I return to the politics of it, right? You think about the RNC July 15th, August 19th, the Democratic National Convention, September 16th, if there is presidential debates, that's when they'll happen. Undoubtedly, look, abortion for every one of these data points is going to be, or points on the calendar is going to be an enormous issue. That said, Donald Trump had a choice to talk about all the things that we laid out that he could have claimed wins on Saturday, on Sunday, and on Monday, even today. And yet he always seems to be unable to not make himself the center of attention on, in this case, as we all pointed out, as you pointed out aptly, a lightning rod issue. Why is that?
Well, he did it in April. He didn't wait till October. I think that's probably a good idea. He staked out a position. It's a position some people aren't as happy with because they wanted him to be for a federal ban. But on the other hand, he's not waiting until October to come out with something that would create some controversy. This is out. Like I say, we have a clear choice in November between a person, the existing president, who used to be pro-life, Leland. He used to be adamantly pro-life, and he's Catholic. But now he's just played the political game of this and has gone to an extreme and radical position on abortion. It's that, or it's a person who actually was the most pro-life president in American history. Donald Trump, without doubt, was. More than the Bushes, more than Reagan, more than any of them.
Well, fair enough. And I guess you could also argue, pun intended, that put it out this morning, and at least some of the coverage of it was eclipsed by the eclipse, as we saw. My good buddy Chris Steyerwalt wrote a piece over the weekend saying that Trump can't win, but Biden could lose. And he points to polling in every one of the swing states that basically has Trump polling where he did in 2020, but Joe Biden underperforming. How worried should Republicans be that a lot can happen that is very good for Joe Biden in the next few months, and that Donald Trump over the years, we saw it in 2016, we saw it in 2020, is still capped by this ceiling?
Well, I think there are a lot of people that are gravitating toward Trump that weren't doing that in 2020 or even 2016, particularly if you look at Hispanics, younger people, which is really the biggest surprise to me, but also African Americans. People are clearly seeing that the policies of this current administration are horrible for them. They can't afford gas, groceries, and they think that this is an administration that has abandoned God. They want to mutilate children because they have dysphoria over their gender. There are some real issues that are causing people to sit up and say, we can't keep going this direction. It makes no sense. It's insane. And whatever they think of Donald Trump and his tweets and his personality and sometimes his abrasive characteristics, they remember back that for 4 years, by golly, he cut taxes, deregulated things. The world was at peace. We didn't have an October 7th going on with Hamas butchering Jews just for the sport of it. We didn't have Russia invading Ukraine. We were energy independent for the first time in 75 years. And the average American family had $4,000 a year more in their pockets than they had before. People start remembering that during an election year.
Fair enough. Obviously, Joe Biden's trying to give people a lot to remember, especially on the progressive left. Here he is on student loans today.
The ability for working and middle-class folks to repay their student loans has become so burdensome that a lot can't repay it for even decades after being in school.
Look, we can all agree that the Supreme Court slapped his hand pretty hard the last time he tried to do this. This is a much more targeted, shall we say, approach. But the power of the incumbency is a very powerful one, number one, which President Biden enjoys. And number two, you think about where people are thinking about the economy, and you look at where economists are saying, and a lot of folks are predicting where the economy will go. The next 6 months, things could turn around. And if they turn around, they're going to get better for Joe Biden, not worse.
That's always a possibility, Leland, but I think this is a stupid move on the Biden administration's part because the people he's trying to buy off with this student loan nonsense, they're going to vote for him anyway. But I'll tell you who won't be voting for him. Chumps like me that paid his own way through school. Nobody came and bailed me out. I worked my rear off for 40 hours a week. And there are a lot of other people who didn't get to go to college at all. They're having to pay off their pickup trucks for their plumbing business, or they're being an electrician or a brick mason. Where's Joe Biden going to be to help them pay off the expenses of running their small business and making a whole lot less than these folks who went to college, got a degree, and Joe's going to ease them out of an obligation that they themselves put themselves in? You know, nobody forced them to take out a loan. They could have gone to a less expensive school, a community college, could have gone online. But no, they went to an expensive school. They showed they weren't that smart because they ran up 6 figures of debt to get a degree. And now Uncle Sugar's got to come in and bail them out? I don't think so. I just think Americans are looking at that and saying, there's just nothing right about that.
Yeah, it does not poll well, especially with the working class voters that have been making that switch from the Democratic Party to the Republican one. Governor, it's good to see you as always. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you, Leland. Take care.
Yeah. As the governor reported, the great eclipse of 2024 was spectacular. And it is now over. Long live the eclipse, but maybe not the effects. Much of America, pretty much all the news networks went crazy over the eclipse. Hours of wall-to-wall coverage. Even some anchors dressed up as the sun and the moon to try and explain to us exactly how an eclipse worked. Maybe I could eclipse myself here with the card there. See, there was the eclipse. In case you missed it, and we're working like the rest of us earlier today. This being the era we live in, of course, politics inserted itself. The White House put out a tweet on the right way to observe the eclipse.
Folks, enjoy the eclipse, but play it safe. Don't be silly.
All right. That was President Biden throwing a little shade at his predecessor there. That was President Trump, who famously didn't wear the glasses that you're supposed to watch the eclipse through. Surely, by now, with all the coverage, we knew not to look directly at the sun during the eclipse. Evidently not. According to Google, people searching for phrases like "my eyes hurt," yes, they spiked this afternoon from no searches to thousands upon thousands of searches. You can see it right there, 1 p.m. this afternoon. And no surprise, the concentration of the searches of "my eyes hurt" or "why do my eyes hurt" cut a swath from Texas to Maine, right along the path of the eclipse. So think about that. These are people who were so dumb they looked at the eclipse without the glasses and then turned to Google for the answer. Perhaps, and I cannot believe I am actually saying this on television, maybe there was not enough coverage of the eclipse. We'll try to get it right in 2046 when the next one happens. When we come back, Death to America. Death to Israel. Welcome to the state of Michigan in 2024. How so many on the left now openly mirror the hate speech of Hamas. Are Democrats with us or the terrorists?
Pour all of your chants and all of your shouts upon the head of America.
And it's been more than a week since a mom and a preacher's wife traveling with her through rural Oklahoma disappeared. Why we know so little, despite police finding their car. It's breaking news right now, 2:19 a.m. tomorrow morning. Live pictures of the Israel-Gaza border. In just the past couple of hours, Hamas rejected a ceasefire deal, another one. This was a ceasefire deal that the Arab states wanted Hamas to take, and they turned it down. Reports from the Mideast indicate Hamas said they don't have 40 living hostages to trade out of the 136 still in their custody. It is a stunning admission. Live pictures of the White House, 7:20 p.m. Eastern, where we haven't heard anything from the president or vice president, no condemnations of Hamas or demands they follow the rules of war or unleashing the Israelis to go find their people. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defied President Biden and other Democrats, saying he will order the invasion of Hamas's lost stronghold in the south of Gaza. It's called Rafah. On Twitter, this victory requires entering Rafah and eliminating the terrorist battalions there. This will happen. There is a date. This weekend, Senate Democrats and the White House tightened the thumbscrews on Netanyahu, making them not much different from the Democrats leading rallies this weekend in Dearborn, Michigan. Just pay attention to the subtitles.
It's the United States government that provides the funds for all of the atrocities that we just heard about. Pour all of your chants and all of your shouts upon the head of America.
Those are the same people who led the uncommitted movement in Michigan against Joe Biden. Richard Goodstein's here, former Democratic strategist, former advisor to Hillary and Bill Clinton, also a Democratic strategist currently. Speaking of Hillary Clinton, she was at Wellesley College, her alma mater, over the weekend. Take a look.
I don't really have to meet you after this event and talk with you, but we're going to go on with our discussions.
And there were people yelling and screaming. I guess we didn't get what they were yelling and screaming, but things about genocide and everything else. How is the Democratic Party starting, or why is the Democratic Party starting to kowtow to the terrorist sympathizers?
Yeah, so the suggestion that somehow Democratic leaders are in any respect like these kooks who are trying to interrupt and cause chaos is, I think, a gross mischaracterization. Look, Joe Biden says he's a Zionist. Since he met Golda Meir in 1973, he has probably been as much of a friend of Israel as there has been in the U.S. Senate, in the White House, both under Obama and now currently. And I actually think he is exactly where the American public is. Couldn't have been more supportive. I think had, anybody you could think of been in the White House could not have been more supportive on the heels of October 7th. Went there twice, at some risk to himself. But I think his judgment is, looking out for the interests of the United States and Israel, that Israel has obviously lost its standing in the world community.
But is it when your friends are losing their standing in the world community because they are trying to get their hostages, some of whom are Americans, back, isn't it an ally's job to stand with your friends and say that war is a messy business? America has killed civilians in war. It happens, number one. And number two, I'm old enough to remember George W. Bush. You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. Anytime you are trying to handcuff the Israelis, which Senator Von Holland, Senator Coons, to a certain extent, Joe Biden is trying to do, certainly Kamala Harris is trying to do by talking about a ceasefire, that is giving quarter to Hamas. Yeah. There's no other way to look at that.
I don't think we've heard a word out of Joe Biden inconsistent with the following. Hamas needs to go. as the entity that A, threatens Israel, B, can rain down tens of thousands of rockets. The problem is Hamas knows once they give up those hostages, they have no leverage. So, I mean, I think this notion that somehow or other there's going to be a diplomatic resolution is crazy. I would say this, if I can, to those people in Michigan. Do they want Trump, who says a Muslim ban? No way there'll be a two-state solution. Give Netanyahu as much leeway as he wants to build settlements. The
point of the matter is that you've got Democrats now who, and I'll give you the last word, who are actively supporting things that help Hamas.
Well, again,
when you call for a ceasefire, that helps Hamas. It's that simple.
Yeah, I agree that an unconditional ceasefire allowing Hamas to stay in place is nothing that I think anybody should be supporting. I don't hear actually that from Van Hollen and them. I think what they're talking about are conditional. I think it's conditional.
We're getting into the nuance here.
More aid in, and I think less of these 2,000-pound bombs and some effort not to put IDF soldiers at risk, but to basically go into those tunnels and use whatever methods you can.
Richard.
But let's protect those tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in Rafah, if we can.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Good to see you. A preacher's wife and her friend disappeared in rural Oklahoma more than a week ago. Police say they have evidence of foul play. They can't find Jillian Kelly or Veronica Butler. Did local cops miss important clues that could mean they are gone forever?
His karate lessons might not turn him into a black belt.
Hi-ya!
And even after band camp, he might not be the greatest musician. But with the 3% annual percentage yield you can earn on a PenFed premium online savings account, your goal of supporting his dreams...
Thanks for everything, Mom and Dad.
...will always be worth it. Apply today at PenFed.org/savings. Federally insured by NCUA. $5 minimum to open account. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed.
PenFed's got great rates for everyone.
My 13-year-old acts like a puppy again. Almost overnight, she's a different dog.
Perfect poops.
When people switch their dog's food to the farmer's dog, the effects can seem like magic. But there's no magic involved. It's simply real meat and vegetables with all the nutrients dogs need, instead of highly processed pellets. No tricks, just smarter, healthier pet food delivered in packs portioned for your dog. It's amazing what real food can do. Get 50% off your first order at thefarmersdog.com/no-magic.
Costco has announced a new weight loss program exclusively for its members. In addition to receiving nutrition guides and recommendations, clinical consultations, and an individualized plan, those who are eligible can also receive prescriptions for weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy. If you're single and thinking about moving, consider this. A Consumer Affairs study has ranked the best states for singles, considering things like cost of living and the number of other singles. Number 1 on the list is New York, followed by Alaska and New Jersey. California and Texas didn't make the list. Rising mortgage rates have cast further doubt on meaningful rate cuts happening soon for home buyers. The average rate for the 30-year loan has inched past 7%, settling at 7.07%. That according to the publication Mortgage News Daily. I'm Mark Huffman. Learn more at consumeraffairs.com.
A lot of people have trouble filing their taxes. I wonder if I can help.
You can help people with low to moderate income file their taxes through the IRS's Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, VITA, or Tax Counseling for the Elderly, TCE programs. As a volunteer, you'll learn how to prepare individual tax returns, and at the same time, you'll help taxpayers get tax credits and deductions they're entitled to. If you'd like to volunteer, go to irs.gov and type Tax Volunteer in the search field for more details.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
You're listening to On Balance with Leland Vittert on NewsNation, America's fastest growing cable news network.
When I grow up, I want to be a ballerina.
Because dancing makes me happy. I get to entertain people, and nothing makes me feel more like me.
PI,
A defect of the immune system affects millions of children. Early and accurate diagnosis and treatment give children like Olivia a chance to achieve their dreams.
It takes a great team to put on a show. It also takes a great team of caring people to keep a dream alive. And now my dreams are coming true.
For more information, visit the Jeffrey Modell Foundation at info4pi.org.
Today alone, 5,370 people in the United States will be diagnosed with cancer. That's why Stand Up to Cancer funds and develops the newest and most promising cancer treatments. Stand Up to Cancer wants to provide you with every opportunity to join in this mission. By donating your home, land, or commercial property, you can help Stand Up to Cancer fund innovative cancer research. Stand Up to Cancer makes the process easy, and it may be tax deductible. Visit standuptocancer.org/giveproperty to learn more.
Are you prepared for an emergency or disaster? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. Don't find yourself saying,
I'll trust water bottles and a flashlight to save the day, but I'll be proved wrong.
With a tornado approaching, I'll realize that I like a wheelchair-accessible shelter.
When the floodwaters rise, I'll be up in the attic with 20 cans of beans. It's a recipe for disaster.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Get started at ready.gov/older adults. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
More than a week since two moms disappeared into the Oklahoma Panhandle. Police haven't found the moms or named any suspects in their disappearance. Veronica Butler and Jillian Kelly set out on March 30th from Houghton, Kansas to Eva, Oklahoma. They were headed there to pick up Veronica's kids, but never made it. Wednesday, investigators say they found evidence of foul play. Their car was found in the brush, possibly hidden on the side of a highway 3 miles from where they were supposed to get the kids. Tracy Walder, former FBI agent who's investigated crimes like this. Laura Ingle joins us not far from the scene in northern Oklahoma. Laura, I know you spent the morning in Oklahoma City where the state investigators have started to take a look at this. How is it possible that a week in, we know so little, we have no named suspects, we have no idea where these women might be, we have no surveillance pictures, nothing?
Well, the only explanation we can provide so far is just what you see here behind me, this vast, open, wide landscape that we're dealing with the search and the terrain. And you're right, we started off in Oklahoma City this morning, pounding on the door of the OSBI, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. They've, said to us, look, we just can't tell you much right now. Stand by, we'll let you know when there is news. We were hopeful that there might be some development over the weekend, possibly today. Didn't happen. In fact, they said that they might be able to give us an update this morning. They said they were too busy, so off we went, and we've been driving across the state, and we're just about to come up on the part of the road here on the highway where we're going to hit the spot where the women's vehicle was found. But we want to show you some drone video that we have taken of this very spot where that blue SUV was found on March 30th. And as you can see, when it lifts up and around from that location, that's what we're talking about. Flat, wide, and we've been looking for grid searches. Leland, you and I have talked about missing person cases for decades on the air together. And usually we see grid search. We see K9 units. We see a command post. We don't see anything like that right now. We have been told that family and friends of these two women have been told not to talk to the media. They want to keep everything close to the vest. Understood. But for right now, there are little answers. A lot of people talking about, the family. Let's talk about the ex of the woman who was going to pick up her kids. She was embroiled in a bitter custody battle, Veronica Butler, and we know that she was going to pick up her two kids. I've been going through the court documents that have spanned for years and years about the back and forth with the custody of these two kids between Veronica and her ex, who is reportedly in a drug rehabilitation center right now in Oklahoma City. And the grandmother had custody, and we've been trying to get a hold of the grandmother. Nobody's talking. So for right now, the OSBI is telling us they are, even though we don't see an investigation going on the ground, they say that they are conducting searches, but there's not a lot to look around right now. When you look at that, the footage that we're bringing you from the drone, you can see just how difficult this is, Leland.
Yeah, it's pretty stunning when you see just how rural and vast that area is. Tracy, the Keystone cops screw this one up?
So in my opinion, no, but I do think, to Laura's point about terrain, so I was a drone operator for quite some time. And the thing is an area like this is actually great for covering with drones, quite frankly. You don't have a lot of mountains, you don't have a lot of hilly territory, you don't have really high brush and thick tree canopy. So it's actually pretty easy to cover by drone. The reason I don't think that a command post has been set up is I believe something got them to pull over. This is clearly a targeted attack here because this is a road that is not traveled a lot. So something got them to pull over. And what that tells me is that perhaps they were taken into a vehicle and brought to a secondary location, and police already know that, which may mean why there's not a command post and not a canine crew out here. So I don't necessarily think that they have screwed it up, and I actually think that they're asking the family not to talk because they may be investigating members of the family at this point in time.
Yeah, you'd think, at least in my experience, that you want family members and possible suspects out there talking because you never know what they're going to say to the media that contradicts whatever else is out there. Laura, this goes to an important point, though. If they were targeted, it's obvious and horrific. If they weren't targeted and they are the victims of some kind of random crime, in a way, it's even more scary. Have the police said about there being a threat to the community?
The police have said that there is not an active threat to the community. I did reach out to a private investigator who works this terrain, knows the area well, and says, look, it could absolutely have something to do with a family member. Sure, that's where everybody starts. But also pointed out that this area, because of its vastness, because of the type of terrain we're dealing with, is a big area for human trafficking. So there's that. There's obviously drugs and guns going on around this area as well. And we've heard that there was foul play found around the car. So what was it? Was it blood? Was it a broken window? They are not telling us, the OSBI is not telling us exactly what kind of foul play we're talking about. But to Tracy's point, you're right. We've long also thought maybe somebody was standing on the side of the road. These two women are mothers and they work with the church. The pastor's wife was the passenger. And so, was there somebody that was standing out on the side of the road as a decoy trying to bring them over? It's a list of possibilities that people are talking about. The rumor mill is running rampant out here with all kinds of different scenarios that could be taking place, but we just don't know until the investigators with the OSBI tell us what's going on. They've asked us to hold tight, and I've reached out to the FBI, to my contacts with the FBI, to find out if they're going to get involved. We've reached out to the governor's office. We all want answers, and we want to help find these women and bring them home.
Tracy, last word to you on this. How is it possible that the police would not want help? If they really didn't screw this up and they somehow have the triple underwater blindfolded chess move, that they found all these things, they're just waiting to piece it together, why wouldn't they want their suspects to make a mistake?
So I think it depends. A lot of times what happens in an investigation like this, particularly in areas that are rural, you can go into an issue where there's actually too many tips. And then that hinders the investigation in and of itself and takes a lot longer than what's needed to go through. Also, an investigation like this, Laura was mentioning, you've got several different agencies here. You have individuals in Kansas, you have OSBI, you have the FBI, and you probably have other agencies as well. And so they are all trying to work together. And because they're trying to work together, asking the family at this point in time to not put additional information out there protects all of those agencies in terms of gathering evidence.
Now, you have slightly more confidence than I do, but I understand why. And look, there's no surveillance cameras out there. You think about rural areas with cell phone coverage, whether or not they were able to get pings on the ladies' phones as they moved around, and who might have also been near them. We'll wait to see. Tracy, Laura, thank you very much. Talk to you throughout the week on this. Look, there's a crime in Oklahoma as awful as it is. We'll see whether it was targeted or whether it was something having to do with a cartel. But what we want to show you that's happened over this past weekend shows you the mayhem that has taken over America's cities and that has ensued across America in big cities that have become truly lawless. We talk a lot about California. It's not just in the cities. This is on the Bay Bridge, what we're about to show you, the Bay Bridge that goes from Oakland to San Francisco. Okay, so cars took over the Bay Bridge doing donuts and racing. Hundreds of people showed up. This was planned, allowing everybody to get in and get close to it and have fun. In one video, though, a driver appears to be pulled from his car after getting into an accident. Someone then overtook his car and started doing donuts with it. The Bay Bridge takeover was just one sideshow in California this weekend. There were at least 7 different takeovers. One might wonder where the police are in all of this. Go figure. Just a couple of miles away, similar scene played out for hours. Cars were doing donuts. A 20-year-old girl was struck and had her ankle broken. It's a miracle that not more people get killed during these donut sessions. They just moved to location after location after location. The police say that there's just one group behind it. Somehow they haven't managed to arrest anybody in that group. It's a story similar to what happened 2 weeks ago in Virginia. Hundreds gathered in Fairfax County for a street takeover. A police officer arrived at the scene to cars doing donuts and driving recklessly. The police cruiser was approached. A dash camera caught a large group banging on the car. One person attempted to remove the license plate from the officer's vehicle, while others blocked a second officer who arrived at the scene. Police chief later said he believed the officers narrowly escaped death. It's amazing. And still, no major arrests of any of these groups. New video shows the engine of a Southwest plane breaking up, literally in flight. The engine broke up. Why do airplanes keep falling apart midair? And how did air safety become political?
Let's go ahead and declare an emergency for Southwest 3695, and we'd like an immediate return. We got a piece of the engine cowling hanging off, apparently. Southwest 3695, roger that. Turn left, heading 190, fit to Denver via radar vectors.
That might qualify as an emergency. The engine on the Boeing 737 ripped apart. The plane turned around, made a safe landing back in Denver. With us now, International Airline Captain Latney Campbell. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. Terrifying or reassuring that everything worked out?
I would say reassuring. This is an unprecedented thing. I have about 6,000 hours flying this specific aircraft in this incident. And it's very incumbent on whoever's doing the walk around to make sure they get up underneath the airplane. A little hard to do because the engines are low lying, to make sure that those clasps are closed to hold on the engine cowl covers, which is what came off this airplane. So especially at night, it's difficult, but during daytime, almost inexcusable. And it kind of alludes to a much larger issue that's going on in the industry right now.
And that would be what?
Well, we have such a rollover of experience. I mean, we're put in perspective. It took me 20 years to upgrade to captain at my airline. We're losing so many experienced pilots that now the new pilots are upgrading in 2 years. In some cases, they're being hired ab initio as captains for mainline aircraft. It's the same thing in maintenance. They're losing tons and tons of experience. And so people that would normally have their routine down with their protocols for pre-flight checks, both maintenance and first officers usually, but sometimes captains that do the walk around, make sure that those doors are properly latched. And in this case, clearly they weren't, and they come right off. The engine's running fine, but obviously it's very alarming to passengers, and it can do damage to the after part of the aircraft, the leading edge flaps and slats, for example.
Yeah, you think about what's happened just sort of in what we've now been hearing about, right? Whether it was the 737 Boeing problems in the past month alone, wheels fly off after takeoff in March, flight veers off the runway, return to Sydney after a fuel leak, missing panels after a flight. Now this. Interesting when you just compare the raw numbers. 2024, 29 incidents, accidents, and occurrences involving Boeing planes globally from January 1 to April 7th of this year. 2 per week this year on average, slightly down 34 incidents through April 7th of last year. But what you're describing is not really specific to one airplane or one airline, but is just a larger failure in the industry that between Boeing's problems about making airplanes and what they've focused on, and now what the airlines are focused on. How does this not end in a crash?
I would like to think that the protocols are in place. You have to remember the people in the flight decks were vetted so severely in our training. We are really, really able to handle just about anything that happens to the airplanes. But if you have inexperience, if you have, in some cases, lack of competence, even the fact that people get maybe paid less as the younger people are paid less than the older guys. So the inclination in corporate America is to let the older people go, bring in new people. You lose that experience. And, this isn't driving a car. You're in an airplane. I fly an airplane with 300 people in the back. So you've got to have competence throughout the entire system in order to fly folks from A to B safely. And this is not a problem that wasn't anticipated. We knew with retirements in the maintenance ranks and especially in the pilot ranks, starting back in 2016, 17, that we were going to have issues. And so I think what you're seeing is a manifestation of lack of experience or lack of experience and competence in basic everyday operations of the airlines. And yes, you're absolutely right. If you keep messing around, this could lead to something far worse. So far, we've been lucky, especially with the Boeing airplane that lost the side exit.
The door,
that was a very serious. Yeah, very serious.
No, but in the larger sense, we know, look, Boeing is now, there's a lot of reporting out in terms of what they prioritized, a broad stakeholder value. It includes DEI and all sorts of other things other than focusing on making airplanes that are safe. The airlines clearly have had their own things that they focus on other than moving people from point A to point B safely. Above all, traditionalists, I think, would say, look, all I care about is airplanes flown by well-trained, competent pilots with experience and manufactured by people who put safety first, because as you point out, that's all that matters. How did we get away from that, as you describe?
Well, I think to a degree it's globalization. And follow me here. In the case of Boeing, they moved their corporate headquarters away from the factory floors. They have, 170 different distributors that manufacture things for them. And it all has to come together. They even have people that are manufacturing metric and converting over to British Standard and just laying off all the old people, putting profit before product when the product used to drive the profit. And so that's, I think, what you're seeing. But it's not just Boeing. It's a worldwide phenomenon. We're going through a growth spurt, and it's going to really in flying. Really, there's no replacing experience. You're just going to have to get these guys on the line, get them dialed up, get them ready to go. And I would say this too: in the old guard, the older days, there was more of an elan about professionalism, and I think today it's more laissez-faire. It's just cultural. People are laissez-faire about jobs in general. And so when you come into an industry like this, you cannot be that way. We have to be what
you're saying is scary. And you think about the one place that government, of all the things that it does poorly, that government regulation really has made things so safe was how the FAA built the American aviation system, and now seems to be other priorities. Captain, thank you for the insights. We appreciate it. We'll have you back, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it. The White House Correspondents Association announces their winners of the best coverage for the year. How the hard-hitting stories differ from White House press releases when we come back. In a couple of weeks, D.C. is going to spend the weekend in tuxedos and ball gowns. It's the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the end of April, a.k.a. Nerd Prom, where journalists will gather together at the Hilton Hotel. They congratulate each other on the First Amendment. They tell each other how important they are, and they listen to President Biden tell bad jokes. It's a celebrity for Hollywood for ugly people, if you will. The White House Correspondents Association will also hand out awards for the best coverage of the year. Among the headlines, Scoop: Netanyahu tells Biden we have to go into Gaza by Barak Ravid. And in Tel Aviv, Biden's embrace of Israel came with a gentle warning by Peter Baker. Or this picture of Mr. Biden boarding Air Force One also won an award. What's interesting is when you look at the stories that won these awards for coverage of the White House, the stories themselves actually differ very little from what we hear during the press briefing. It's something that Karine Jean-Pierre would be happy to have reported. Then here are some of the winners from the Trump years. Trump repeatedly pressed Ukraine president to investigate Biden's son. Trump decried protections for immigrants from blank hole countries. Something has to be done. Trump quest to rewrite history of the Russia probe. And to be fair, that's real journalism. Maybe some of the stories were unfair, maybe it was tough coverage, but that's what journalists are supposed to do. They're supposed to uncover things and report things the White House doesn't want reported. When we went back and looked at the White House Correspondents Association winners from when Trump was president, not a single winner of the White House Correspondents Association awards over 4 years of Trump could be seen as anything as positive. The White House Correspondents Association tells us they exist to promote excellence in journalism as well as journalism education and to ensure robust news coverage of the president and the presidency. Robust news coverage, aka not press releases. They also claim to promote access, yet they will celebrate a man who provides the least access to the press of any modern president. 87 interviews, many to late-night hosts and weathermen and TikTokers, compared to Trump's 300 and Obama's 422 at their respective times in their presidencies. And for those that would say Trump required more aggressive coverage, fine. But consider this clip today of Mr. Biden claiming he was the first person in his family to go to college versus a clip a few years earlier in his presidency.
I, like an awful lot of people in this audience, was the first in my family to go to college and watched my dad struggle to help me get there and get all the kids there. My grandfather, Finnegan Scamp, would really be proud of me right now. No, I'm not joking, he would. By the way, he was an All-American football player, John, in Santa Clara.
Okay, so his grandfather went to college. We have that on tape, yet he continues to repeat the lie, objectively, that he's the first person in his family to go to college. So which is it? Probably the first time you're hearing of this story, right? Certainly we will hear fact checks of Mr. Biden's claims tonight on the evening news. Who knows? Maybe the White House Correspondents Association would even give an award for such fact checks, such critical reporting of the presidency. We'll be back tomorrow with more of our critical reporting, fair and fearless, every night. Here's Chris.